Sir John Major has called on party leaders to give MPs a free vote to end the Brexit stalemate at Westminster. The UN says it believes 170 migrants trying to reach Europe have drowned in the Mediterranean in recent days. Windsor Davies, one of the stars of It Ain't Half Hot Mum, has died at the age of 88. The former Conservative Prime Minister, Sir John Major, has urged Theresa May to drop her red lines on Brexit or break the political deadlock by allowing MPs a free vote. He said the Commons had killed Mrs May's EU withdrawal plan last week. It was now time for her to become a facilitator and let Parliament decide. In a speech this morning, the shadow Brexit Secretary, Sir Keir Starmer, put forward a stark choice: negotiate a close economic relationship with the EU based on a customs union, or hold another referendum. Our political correspondent Nick Eardley reports.
Westminster is stuck on what happens next with Brexit, and there's no guarantee anything can command a majority in the House of Commons. John Major believes a potential way to end the impasse is to hold a series of votes, free from party whips, exploring support in Parliament for various options. The so-called indicative votes would allow MPs to express their preference on what Brexit should look like, and perhaps if it should happen at all. Sir John told the Today programme Theresa May's deal was dead, and if she could not find an alternative which commanded majority support, she should help Parliament try.
The Prime Minister still needs a deal. If she can't deliver one that Parliament accepts, then she needs to become a facilitator, a mediator, to find out what Parliament will accept.
The MP Frank Field, who resigned the Labour whip last year, is to table an amendment on Monday seeking to make that happen. Debate, meanwhile, continues over Labour's next move. The party has so far refused to take part in cross-party talks, calling them a stunt. But there is disagreement in Labour ranks about whether the party should pivot towards supporting another referendum. Some senior figures believe to do so would be unwise and damage its standing in Brexit-supporting areas, many of which vote Labour. But today the party's Brexit spokesman, Sir Keir Starmer, said there were now just two options on the table. One, that the government moves towards a softer Brexit and agrees to a permanent customs union. The other, a second referendum.
A public vote has to be an option for Labour. It has to be an option for Labour. After all, deeply embedded in our values are internationalism, collaboration and cooperation with our European partners. That's what we're about as a party. It's what we've always been about.
The Prime Minister, however, has made clear she thinks a second referendum would be a betrayal, and she knows embracing a customs union would cause fury in her own party. The former Brexit Minister, Suella Braverman, said such an approach would make a mockery of democracy.
The UN Refugee Agency says it fears that more than 170 migrants trying to reach Europe have drowned in the Mediterranean in recent days. A boat said to be carrying around 120 people sank off the Libyan coast. Another 50 people are reported to have died in the waters between Spain and Morocco. Our Middle East analyst, Alan Johnston, reports.
An Italian Navy helicopter came on the scene of an unfolding disaster in waters off Libya yesterday. A rubber dinghy was sinking. The aircrew managed to winch 3 people out of the sea, 2 Sudanese citizens and a Gambian national, but many died. The survivors said there were 120 people aboard their boat when it set out. It's understood that more than 50 other people drowned in a separate sinking in waters between Spain and Morocco. A spokeswoman for the UN Refugee Agency, Liz Throssell, said migrants needed more help.
We need great efforts to prevent refugees and migrants from taking these absolutely desperate journeys in the first place. What we need to see is more safe and legal pathways so that people can get asylum in Europe. It's needed for those that are fleeing war and persecution.
But Italy's new populist government is determined to stop migrants reaching its shores. It believes they've had too much help from charity organisations that operate rescue ships. It accuses them of encouraging more people to take the risk of making the dangerous journeys. The UN's view, however, is that no effort must be spared to save lives in distress at sea. It wants the charity rescue ships to be assisted to do their work.
President Trump is due to make what he's described as a major announcement in a few hours' time, with no end in sight to the partial shutdown of the US government. There's deadlock between Mr. Trump and Democrats over funding for his planned border wall with Mexico. The shutdown, which is the longest of its kind in US history, has led to around 800,000 government workers either being sent home or forced to work without pay. From Washington, here's our correspondent David Willis.
President Trump is playing his cards close to his chest. There's speculation that he might be poised to offer a concession in regard to the so-called dreamers, young people who entered the United States with their parents illegally and now face the threat of deportation. But whilst their plight has been a key immigration issue for the Democrats, movement on that front alone is unlikely to bring an end to the government shutdown. Not while the president continues to push for funding for a wall along the border with Mexico. Democrats bitterly oppose such a project, which they deem an affront to American values. Yet this morning, the president continued to insist the border wall was non-negotiable.
We're building a wall as we speak. We're going to continue. This country cannot be secure. You have human traffickers. You have criminals of all kinds. The Border Patrol has done an incredible job, but we need the help and the backup of a wall.
The president's last face-to-face meeting with Democrat leaders was 10 days ago. No further talks are planned, and by the time Congress reconvenes on Tuesday, not only will the shutdown be more than a month old, but those affected will be facing the loss of a second paycheck, which is due on Friday. Charitable organisations are reporting a steady increase in the number of government workers turning up at food banks. And with air traffic controllers and airport security staff among those working without pay, some are warning of the dangers of a stress-related disaster of some kind if the dispute isn't resolved soon.
An oil pipeline has exploded in central Mexico, killing at least 66 people and injuring dozens of others. The blast happened as hundreds of people were filling buckets with fuel stolen from the leaking pipe in Hidalgo state. Our correspondent Richard Galpin has more details.
Hundreds of people had come to the area where thieves had punctured a pipeline, sending fuel spurting up into the air. With severe shortages of fuel in the country, many had been desperate to fill the containers which they brought with them. It's not clear exactly what sparked the huge fire, but one witness said there'd been an explosion. Footage has emerged of flames shooting into the sky and people fleeing the area. But many did not make it. More than 60 people were killed. The fuel shortages are the result of a decision by Mexico's new president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, to crack down on fuel theft, which is costing the government billions of pounds. Last month, the president ordered that key pipelines be shut down until they were properly secured. And despite what's happened, he is not changing this policy.
Tens of thousands of people have turned out in the Polish city of Gdansk to pay tribute to the city's popular Liberal mayor, who was fatally stabbed while taking part in a charity event. The killing of Pawel Adamowicz last weekend has shocked the city, where he had been in office for 2 decades. A 27-year-old local man who was recently released from prison has been charged with murder. From Gdansk, here's our correspondent, Adam Easton.
The funeral began to the sound of Puccini's Requiem. People had queued for 2 hours in the freezing cold to get inside the 14th century basilica. Outside, tens of thousands gathered in the streets to watch on large screens, to bid farewell to a man who had been their mayor for more than 20 years. During that time, Gdansk has transformed from a dreary grey port town into a modern and dynamic European city, one that is open to migrants and minorities. That made the mayor a hate figure for some on the right. Moments after plunging the knife in, his attacker, who had just got out of prison for armed robbery, told the stunned crowd that he blamed the mayor's former party for his incarceration.
The Duke of Edinburgh has been seen driving a new Land Rover 2 days after being involved in a crash on a road near Sandringham, Norfolk. Pictures on the Sun and Daily Mail websites are said to show Prince Philip, who's 97, driving alone on the Sandringham estate. He was unhurt in Thursday's crash, but 2 women were injured. The fast food chain Leon has suggested people who have severe allergies should seriously consider whether it's safe to eat at its restaurants. The company says it can't guarantee its dishes are free from allergens. The announcement has been criticised by groups campaigning for better food labelling. More details from Helen Morgan-Wynne.
Writing on the company's website, the co-founder of Leon, John Vincent, says the allergens in its food are listed on its menu boards. Customers can also ask for a fact sheet. But he insists it's impossible to guarantee that all the dishes will be 100% allergen-free. That's why, Mr. Vincent says, customers who have a serious or life-threatening allergy should consider carefully whether they want to dine in the restaurants. The parents of a teenager who died in 2016 after eating a pret-a-manger sandwich containing sesame seeds accused Leon of sending out a confusing message by making the restaurants look safe while not actually catering properly for people with allergies.
Now, sport and Liverpool have survived a scare to extend their lead at the top of the Premier League. With this and the rest of the day's sport, here's Nicola McCarthy.
Liverpool came from a goal down to edge a 7-goal thriller against Crystal Palace at Anfield and extend their lead at the top of the Premier League to 7 points. Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp saw his side score all their goals in the second half.
I loved actually our reaction directly after half-time, came back, stayed positive, nothing really happened. Being 1-0 down is not a massive blow, it's just a result. And so we wanted to win the second half and boys, did what we had to do.
Manchester United beat Brighton 2-1 at Old Trafford to make it 7 wins from 7 for interim manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. There were also wins for Newcastle, Bournemouth, Wolves and Southampton. It was goalless between Watford and Burnley. In the late game, it's currently Arsenal 2, Chelsea 0 approaching half-time. Semi-professional side Auchinleck Talbot provided one of the biggest Scottish Cup shocks in years. They beat local rivals Ayr United of the Championship 1-0 in the 4th round. Law student Craig McCracken scored the only goal against his former side.
Also, that makes it a bit more sweeter, but I left on good terms, so it's not as if I left on bad terms, but it does make it a bit sweeter.
So roll on the 5th round, who do you want? You want someone back here, I guess, don't you?
Oh, Celtic away. No, it doesn't matter who we'll get, we'll take it, it doesn't matter.
England's preparations for their Six Nations opener against champions Ireland have been hit by an injury to captain Owen Farrell. He was withdrawn from Saracens' Champions Cup match against Glasgow today to have a minor procedure on his thumb. Here's Saracens' boss Mark McCall.
As far as I'm aware at the moment, it's a very minor injury, which I'm having the operation today should allow him to take full part in Six Nations.
And Saracens won to guarantee a home quarter-final. Glasgow were already through as one of the best runners-up.
Tributes have been paid to Windsor Davies, the star of the 1970s television comedy series It Ain't Half Hot Mum, who's died aged 88. His bullying character, Battery Sergeant Major Shut Up Williams, imposing harsh discipline on the delicate artists of the Royal Artillery Concert Party in India, made him a household name. He once said the show had saved him from being a great actor. Our arts correspondent David Sillitoe looks back at his life.
Oh, Mr. Lardy-Dargunner Graham, what did you think you was doing sitting down by there drinking tea? Why wasn't you waiting them stones?
I'm terribly sorry, Sergeant.
Shut up!
Windsor Davies, as of course Battery Sergeant Major Williams in It Ain't Half Hot Mum, a role that saw him throughout the 70s in a sort of semi-permanent rage as he dealt with the antics of a military concert party.
Is that the only hat you've got, Gunner?
Yes, Sergeant Major. I've got very thin skull bones.
Well, you know why that is, don't you?
No.
You've got such a huge brain. It's rubbing on the inside and wearing your head out.
They said, no, wait, just a minute now, you're a Welshman. And I said, yeah, of course. He said, do it as a Welshman. And I remember thinking about one bloke in the valleys who always talked like that, you know. Thought, oh, right, that's the boy, you know.
You promised me.
Ian Lofty, played by Donald Stell, even got to the top of the charts.
Whispering Brass say, you can't keep your word. Keep your word. Sing Lofty.
Why do you whisper?
Born in London, he'd grown up in Wales and worked as a miner and teacher before turning to acting. There were roles in Z-Cars and Callan and comedies with Dick Emery and Charlie Drake. In the 80s, he was the co-star of the sitcom Never the Twain and carried on working well into his 70s. But the role that would always define him was that of the Sergeant Major in It Ain't Half Hot Mum.
B-O-B-O-Y-S, boys to entertain you. And not for glory, but of God.
The headlines again. Sir John Major has called on party leaders to give MPs a free vote to end the Brexit stalemate at Westminster. The UN says it believes 170 migrants trying to reach Europe have drowned in the Mediterranean in recent days. Windsor Davies, one of the stars of It Ain't Half Hot Mum, has died at the age of 88. BBC News.